Colleen Taylor, Backstage at TechCrunch Disrupt New York City 2013, and sitting with me is Mr. Chris Dixon,
Hi.
venture partner at Andreessen Horowitz. He just came off stage, fireside chat with Eric Eldon. How do you think it went?
It seemed good. It was a good crowd, and it was a fun chat. So
you talked about so many interesting things, but one thing that you said that I wanted to dig into a bit more back here, you just said a statement of fact. You said, well, we know, when you were talking about investing in Bitcoin, you said, well, Wall Street is pretty corrupt.
Yeah, well, I was sort of quoting, just to be clear, I think it's pretty clear that there are certain aspects of Wall Street, but I was sort of I was talking about how a lot of entrepreneurs in California feel like that both, the financial sector is a huge sector that they want to start companies in and disrupt and do other things, but also that that the fact that Wall Street, has shown all these sort of signs of corruption or whatever, makes it sort of even more sort of an attractive of a target or something.
Right.
And that Bitcoin is kind of feels like an entry point into the world of sort of financial tech. And
it's funny because we're here in New York City where Wall Street finance has been such a huge industry,
Well, I think to me that's a lot of what the New York kind of tech movement is about. And I think it's sort of mischaracterized sometimes as like New York versus California or something. When in fact I think, if anything, it's it's about the character of New York City and whether New York is going to be a town about making things or a town of sort of taking things the way that it has been recently with like Wall Street, and it's become a service town, right? Like it's Wall Street and law firms and a bunch of other things like that. When historically it actually was a town that made stuff, and I think what's one of the exciting things going on with the kind of resurgence of the tech community here is that hopefully that's shifting things back to making things.
And you talked a bit about 3D printing and things like that. Are there any other
And that, by the way, just we invested in Shapeways. They have an office in Manhattan, but they actually have a factory out in Queens. So they're actually bringing manufacturing to New York City, which I think is really exciting.
Right, and that was my next question. Are there any other kind of sectors that you could see Andreessen as possibly being interested in, beyond the software space and getting more into hardware, getting more into making things? I mean, would you guys invest in a denim company or in a...
Well, we do actually have some e-commerce investments in, like we did one recently. It wasn't me personally, but it was one called Julep, which is a e-commerce beauty company, and certainly hardware. I think you'll see a bunch of hardware investments from us. That will include software. It'll have a software component, but will also be sort of physical hardware.
Right, and one other thing I wanted to ask you about, because people know you so much for your blog and your writing. Have you been able to keep that up as much with the Andreessen Horowitz job?
I've sort of fallen off of the pace I'd like. It's also tricky because in this job, I'm sort of trying to figure out how to do it, because in the job as a VC, you have a lot of confidential meetings. Like you meet entrepreneurs who are telling you confidential things and you can't disclose those things. And so it's hard because I come home and it's like I just spent 8 hours in confidential meetings, and so I'm still trying to figure that out, like sort of how to, obviously I'm not going to disclose specifics, but like how do you abstract it away enough that like, you're not disclosing whatever. So like that's part of the challenge. A lot of it's just time and I just need to get into a rhythm, but certainly I hope to. I've been doing about one a month now, and I'd like to get back to like, one every week or two.
Cool. Yeah. But it seems like that's something, because you talked on stage with Eric about how VC has changed and the role of a VC has changed and the dynamic has changed. And it seems that also, I think traditionally we would think that big venture capitalists wouldn't blog, wouldn't tweet. They're kind of a little bit more behind closed doors, but, that's a changing face with guys like you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's not like I've been doing that stuff for a long time, so it's not like it's a tactic or something.
Right.
I think part of why I was a cultural fit for Andreessen Horowitz was that they saw that as a very natural thing to do, and so that was good. But I think we see our job as doing what we can to help both the entrepreneurs that we're currently investors in, and then just sort of broadly contribute to the community, and sort of providing information, perspective, blogging, tweeting, et cetera, is part of that service. So.
And last question here. You just mentioned that you take a lot of confidential meetings and things, but is there any meeting that you had recently that maybe wasn't confidential, or you can give me a hint? Like, what's the last thing that you saw or the last pitch you got that you're actually really excited about that maybe some other people out there won't won't know about quite yet?
I don't know if I say that, then I'll let you know what we're investing in right now. So I don't know if I can do that, unfortunately. But
you can give me a sector.
I think the things I've been talking about, just like that I talked about on stage and things, I think Bitcoin's very interesting, 3D printing's very interesting, hardware, and that hardware is just is a huge space. So everything from like wearable computing to robotics. There's a lot of interesting stuff there, both on the consumer and the industrial side. There's a lot of just stuff that's interesting, just like on on the traditional kind of internet. Actually a lot of stuff, a lot of interesting meetings lately with people thinking about new developer tools. So kind of in the line of like the Parse kind of thing that just got bought by Facebook, but just sort of ways to make, because you have this kind of broad pattern where you have a shortage of software developers. So one way to improve that is to immigration reform and other things, but another way is simply to make is sort of to provide force multipliers for the existing programmers and make them better. So a lot of interesting stuff around that.
Good stuff. Yeah. Well, Chris Dixon, thank you for coming
thanks for having me.
Backstage, and enjoy the rest of Disrupt.
Okay, thank you.